Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun. Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, the supposed day. I haven't heard of any attack yet, so I don't think that's going to happen. But today we do have retail sales and the FOMC meeting minutes later today after the stream, which should be pretty important. So let's go and see what we did overnight here. So you can see yesterday S&P 500 had a good jump up overnight, but during the regular session was quite contained because the PPI numbers weren't great, but they were excited about Ukraine possibly not happening. So pretty tight range yesterday and a fairly tight range overnight too. In fact, I mean, compared to what we'd been doing, in previous weeks, volatility has contracted in the S&P 500 considerably. We're also starting to see that happen in the bonds. Now, the MOVE index is just like up there. Like bond volatility is pretty high right now, but again, volatility contracting. So, and then we come over to oil. Now, oil took this, big jump off on the whole Ukraine thing, right? And most of that risk premium came off, but they then bounced and they're kind of moving on their way back up. I don't know. I kind of have a sense that oil might come back to 90, but I mean, the longer term fundamentals in oil are still really good. So if we get some sort of a pullback down here, I think we would want to take that, right? Natural gas is on the upswing again. In here, gold, same thing. A lot of risk premium came out, but look, they based out at a pretty decent spot. Gold and silver. So, and copper doing okay, but having a little bit of a tumble this morning. Coming back out here to the currencies. Bitcoin had, also a good jump because it also got hit by the whole Ukraine stuff. Short-term fundamentals, I mean, not fundamentals, but like the technicals, the momentum looks good in Bitcoin. There's still a lot of risk out there, but we are getting to like reasonable valuation levels. So I'm gonna bet that they're gonna try again, but we just be careful. Any kind of bad headline could just smack this down. And if we do get a bad headline in Bitcoin, that might actually be the point where I try and get in. We'll see. And then over here in the dollar coming off quite a bit as well, but they're still above 95.5. So I think 95.5 is kind of the area that we've been watching and been like, maybe they change. So here in about 3 minutes, we're going to get the retail sales number. Which is a fairly large impact number, and we're looking for a reading of 2%, with core retail sales month over month being 1%. So surging vehicle sales are going to be a large part of the retail sales here. Man, it's like almost half of the increase, right? The difference between the core and the normal. So that's kind of that's our setup, and we'll see where we go from there. What broker do I use? I am currently using NinjaTrader brokerage. Thinking about switching. Thinking about maybe going Edge Clear. There's a couple of other people I've spoken to, but I want to get back to rhythmic data, and NinjaTrader brokerage doesn't offer rhythmic data. So yeah, I used to have AMP. they weren't necessarily bad. They do have the cheapest commissions. Their support isn't as good. Although I have to say, I was trying to log in to get my tax documents, which they didn't have for some reason. But yeah, what was with that? Well, I don't know if I actually traded that account before I switched things, anyways. But uh, their interface has gotten a lot better. Maybe Ninja Trader Brokerage kind of made them step up because the Ninja Trader Brokerage interface was better. Oh, and I'm just realizing now that the 10-year yield is exactly where we left it yesterday, between 05 and 04. Okay, we got a minute left here. I don't know if a trade here in the micros makes sense off of the retail sales number, but let's see what happens. That number is like wildly off of what the estimates are. Interesting things could happen. Okay, well, they definitely have pulled here for it. Ooh, that's really good. Well, I don't know if I'm going to buy into that. The liquidity here in the micros is pretty shit, but that is a good number. Retail sales 3.8% versus an expected 2%. The core retail sales 3.3 versus 1%. So that increase was not just from the vehicle sales. It's really good. So the concerns over the slowing economy, I think that really assuages those concerns and significantly heightens the possibility that the Federal Reserve has to tighten, perhaps faster than they would like. It looks like we've got a pretty decent liquidity hole here forming behind us, so I'm trying and provide some liquidity here. Now, what is the dollar doing here? The dollar's not moving all that much yet. And the S&P, well, the S&P 500 liked it. It hasn't turned into anything too big yet. I feel like it should be though. Like, I don't know, 60 is not bad. Okay, I can see some of the liquidity coming back now in the micro. And the 10-year has largely normalized. I mean, they're not putting up 3Ks yet, but they're putting up 2Ks. My breath feels heavy for some reason, like I'm still asleep. Thanks for answering. No problem at all. It's a good question. Hmm. There is some pretty massive absorption there on the bid. What's with that? Let me just put some stuff out here just in case. You feel that equities will sell today? Well, I have to say that their uh, reaction to retail sales, of course, they are buying, but it, considering how good of a beat it was, you would think that they would maybe be buying harder. Kind of makes me a little suspicious here. I just want to note that the micros over here haven't traded any actual volume. You see, they go bid, and me and the other retail traders that have orders there don't pull it, and they're not willing to hit us. The 10-year is definitely moving around a lot there, though. Let's reset things. We can try and get some sort of a baseline. And you can see they've fought over that 23 level quite a bit. But there was a pretty big distribution around 22. Like, markets have gone also quiet ever since the block order news. I think that that's mostly just a coincidence. I think that what's really going on here is markets are still very concerned about the Ukraine story, and probably until the end of the day, if not the end of the week, that you know, things return back to normal on that front. And another thing that I think you're really seeing is that, especially in the bond markets. Now look at that; they don't want to do it. It's funny. All right, somebody finally took it. So of course now they're going to try and railroad us. You think ES would make new lows? I don't know. The Russians can easily keep 10 years at the border, so the market. Yeah, I definitely was tired of it by the end of yesterday. Like, just the constant headlines of like, it's gonna happen, it's not gonna happen, we pulled away from the border, no you didn't, yada yada. I really don't think anything's gonna happen, which leaves us in the odd situation of, well, not the odd situation, but the difficult situation of not really knowing what's going on in the end. Because, if Russia had attacked, then that would have been the answer. They were just lying the whole time, right? Now it's like there's no way for us to know, was Russia really posturing hard and the West really thought that they were going to attack? Or is this, as Russia says, all just a propaganda effort by the West to try and help Biden's, languishing poll numbers or something like that? How, how am I supposed to say? I mean, obviously, I would prefer to trust my own government, but they don't have anything to prove it, right? Yeah, we do have the minutes today. That is going to be super, super important, right? Yeah. Now, I am not sure. So on the emergency meeting on Monday, I feel like very out of the loop because nothing ever happened. Like, we knew when the meeting was happening, and according to the release, they were supposed to say something at the end of that meeting, and we never got anything. So what's the deal with that? But I suppose that means that they didn't do an emergency rate hike, right? So like, what do you do? I don't know. Yep, there they go, railroading us. 26, huh? Well, I don't know about that one. I'm a little suspicious that that is just them trying to bust the range and trigger stops. There is some absorption there at 26. There are Arab countries at war, so why is Ukraine so concerning? Well, because the Ukraine is so concerning because one, the oil pipeline would get shut down in a situation like that, which would be extremely unhelpful to growth in Europe. Higher energy prices would just be like the spike in energy prices would just like completely kill the economy over there. And then the second thing is that they would probably cut Russia off from SWIFT. So that would mean that Russia would be completely and utterly cut off from the financial system. Which, there's it's Russia's not like a huge economy trading partner, but it would have a lot of knockoff effects and it would be negative for growth. So both of those things are really significant risks for the equity markets. So if there was a war in Ukraine, I would expect there to be like, a 5 to 10% correction at least. Yes. It's a serious risk. On not saying that it's likely to happen. There's no way for me to guarantee that it will or will not happen. I just know that if it did happen, it is a significant risk. Yeah, the U.S. is ready to sell gas to Europe. They've been scrambling to get alternative supply to them, but it's the price is still going to go up. I mean, remember, come back and to our chart here, and especially when it comes to natural gas, man. I mean, it's already on the rise. We've had it go as high as 5.60, $5.60, right? And if there was an attack in Ukraine, we would easily be 6, 7, 8. It would be a drag on growth for sure. It looks like the U.S. badly wants to sanction Russia so it can sell to Europe. Well, I don't know about that because remember the whole thing about that Donald Trump wanted, was basically holding up a pipeline and Biden let it through. So they've been, and Germany obviously wants the pipeline. Look at that. Pretty good buying up into those highs. I'm just looking like I've overstayed my welcome. We're only and that's the only volume that is traded here in the micros. That is awfully odd. There's some big absorption up there, 27.5. The back and forth of price is nice so far. Well, I am noticing. Well, this does not look like a back and forth. This looks like an uptrend, man. What, what do you, the treasury markets have been turning into a back and forth, yes, and that might be good for us. That might be something that we could start doing mean reversion in the treasuries, and that might make scalping a little bit easier if the treasuries overall were more range bound. But right now we are getting an awfully strong uptrend. They have washed out the initial move from the news. I do not understand why that would be. There's certainly nothing in the news. Well, so hold on. I have my tweet deck open here. Let's see. What does Mohammed Al Rain say? Retail numbers are strong. January sales rose by 3.8%, notably broad-based, and follows the prior 2.5% revised drop. The outcome was almost double the median forecast. Russia-Ukraine uncertainties notwithstanding will play into the inflation and Fed policy debates. Yes. Uh, it seems to me, well, the number to me looked really good, but the markets are not really, the S&P 500 is not going anywhere off of that. But the treasuries moved up hard. What's Brannigan Bear saying? The narrative is about to change from equities fearing rate hikes to an economy that can easily handle rate hikes. Note that strong retail sales despite higher inflation. Consumers have excess cash sitting in their accounts. I agree with him. I think he's right. I think that we are the latest spat of data has indicated that the economy that concerns about a slowdown were overblown. Is what that says to me. Concerns about a slowdown were overblown. But so far, the treasuries don't seem to be going along with that and pushing highs quite aggressively after the news. Now, how high can they go here? I think there's a big question on that one because I feel like that this is just trying to railroad us. Have you traded through a financial crisis? Well, I mean, I traded through the 2020 financial crisis. So here's how I trade a financial crisis. If you see it coming early and you get an early easy entry in the treasuries, then you just get that and hold on to it. But if you miss that early entry, just stay out. Just stay on the sidelines, because what tends to happen, especially in the S&P 500, is the volatility picks up and it just chops and dices retail accounts to pieces. Like whatever your stop loss, whatever, type of stop loss you're able to handle, they will probably go through it. And so to really justify trading in that kind of a situation, you really have to be able to put on a lot of risk. And I mean a lot of risk. It's usually better to just kind of let things kind of chill out. Like right now, if we consider this last week a little mini risk off spell, right? Now is probably an okay time to think about dipping back in if you're still bullish, because the volatility has declined significantly, right? When you trade through the DOM, does the stop loss still hold when your internet gets disconnected? Okay, so that's a good question. And it depends on what kind of a stop you set, because you can set a software stop or you can put an exchange side stop. So if it's a software stop, then it's not going to execute. So if I'm doing like the volume stop order in Jigsaw, they have a type of order that will trigger based on what the volume, what the level 2 is. That won't trigger if you get disconnected. But there's usually inside your software settings where you can set these sorts of things. 2020 is not considered it is though. I mean, well, does it count as 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth? I'm not entirely sure, but they emergency decreased interest rates. I mean, how else do you put it that it was a crisis of some sort? The real issue, I think, in modern finance, one of the big issues, I think, is that our metrics for what qualifies as a crisis, is too high. It's too high because there was many little financial panics in between 2008 and 2020 that should count. Like the Eurozone crisis in particular should absolutely count. The taper tantrum that happened before Donald Trump got elected, that one should absolutely count. You know, but when the Fed decreases rates, that's an interest rate cycle. So whether or not there was a crisis, because the reason that we care about whether there was a crisis or not is because of the interest rate cycle, right? Because then it goes back to low rates, and that's good for growth companies, and then different companies do well at different points of the interest rate cycle, and so it changes which kind of companies you want to have, and that's why they care so much about it. Well, man, the treasuries just continue to push there another little spat higher, and I have tried to hold on through this whole thing. Everything would be a crisis. Well, not everything. I don't know if this Ukraine thing would necessarily count. Like if you have a 10% decline in the stock market, that's pretty normal, right? Where's your long-awaited video? It might not be. It might be next week. So I'm going to record it this weekend, but I don't know if I want to put it out on Tuesday or not. So Monday's a holiday. Could be when we do it. I have it all written. I just my wife worked last weekend, so we didn't get it. But you already know everything that's going to be in the video, Nasdaq Killer. You can go and read the study that I'm going to talk about. It's not really for you guys. It's for the people that don't come into the stream every day. Well, now there are some people trading the micros, but I don't know, man. That's pretty crazy move. I cannot explain that. Like this uptrend must be completely unrelated to retail sales. There must be something else going on. Maybe a headline that we don't know about yet, or there's some sort of a flow that we don't know about. That is a more significant pullback, at least. I don't know, man. It could also just be a short covering rally, because remember, we had a hard time getting filled. They didn't want to hit into it, and eventually they did. But after they hit into it, then it was just like gadoosh, 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 gadoosh. They just kept going. So that's really odd kind of action and behavior, isn't it? I don't know. Am I out of my mind here? Here, we'll vote on it. Is Seth being stupid? Yes, no. You let me know. Is Seth being stupid by being confused about this uptrend? Market term of the day, gadoosh. I can't read. Ish, hi, how are you? Vote now. Wonder how all of us here are impacting the market. I think it has some impact. Yeah. Um, wouldn't really have the data necessary to calculate what that impact is, but every order has an impact. And a small group of retail traders can have a much larger impact on things than you might think, especially if the market is in like market making mode. Like the market could totally say, okay, there's no fundamental reason to be moving here, so we're going to move up this way against this position, and it could just happen to be the position that you took. Right. So like in this situation, it's probably not just me, but the best theory that I have for what's going on right now is that it is like some sort of short covering rally stop run. Even on equities or treasuries, yes. Especially on equities. Equities are not nearly as liquid as people think. But treasuries being the most liquid instrument in the world, yes, it can happen. But the thing that you got to understand, FTH, and if you haven't watched my most recent video on the stylized behaviors of markets, then I would go and watch that video. But it is actually just the nature of the market. Like the math of it is that 1% of the volume can be responsible for 10% of the volatility. So, um, even relatively small positions or relatively, like one person obviously is not going to do anything, but a couple of people all trading the same strategy, putting a 1,000 lots out there or something like that, that can absolutely have an impact. What's your thought on oil trading negative? Well, I remember when it happened, and I was pretty much like not trading my live account during that time period, and I wouldn't have traded oil at that time even if I could. And they didn't have micro oil back then either. But that's another one of those ones where it's like, uh, if you tried trading it the day that it happened, you just got diced up. So I knew a lot of people in chat that tried to take that and got chopped up. But then I met some other people that were able to hang on and made so like obscene amounts of money off of it. So you get like the thing is when it gets volatile is it just hits everybody's stops, man. You have to be really big to handle that kind of action. For me and for probably most people here in this channel, it's usually just not worth trying to trade it. Do you pair trade treasuries? I tried doing a spread trade once and it was it went terrible for me. I would like to try and do more with spreads, but I would need um I would need to find much better information to guide me in how to do it, because what I was trying to trade it off of like just didn't work. It was a fundamental setup, but it didn't work. I was looking to see some steepening and it didn't happen. They flattened a lot. So what's small? A 50 lot on it? Well, man, even on NQ, like 5 lots will clear a price, right? NQ is a different beast because it's so volatile. It covers such a wide range. But what I would do is just ask yourself, what is 1% of the daily volume, for instance, right? And just look at that and then say, okay, so this many lots could move it 10% of that day's range, right? Sometimes in the mornings here in the ES, like 1,000 lots is a lot. And when you think about that, can a group of retail traders all trying to trade the same volume profile, moving average, whatever setup, could they potentially um, make up like half of that 1,000? Yeah, can happen. It's possible. Well, okay, so 6 people have voted in the poll so far. Is Seth being stupid? And all 6 of you say no. Well, I trade combines. So when you're doing the evaluation, they do not get sent out. It's just a demo account. And then when you get funded, it depends on which one you're using, but some of those are even like sim accounts. No, we're asking about me being confused about the current action and holding this losing trade. Basically, if you guys say yes, then maybe I'll cut it off. Nah, so like if you get funded at Top Step Trader and you're in their funded program, and I think it's been more than a month, then you're trading a live account. But once you get to that point and you read all of their documentation and stuff, it tells you how it works. I forget the details because there's like so many funded trader programs now and they keep changing. I got crushed. I think this whole thing is bullshit. Why they moved up so strongly. It's a freaking, the retail sales were great. Like what the heck? Yeah, I said I can't really explain the uptrend. It is a return to the levels from earlier in the week, but I just can't see how it can be related to retail sales. And Alligator says I can't. The only thing I could explain is core inflation in Canada is down, but I doubt it matters. Is there like a war headline out or something? So just not. ECB appears to be comfortable with higher yields and wider spreads, says the Wall Street Journal. Secretary of State Blinken, we see no evidence of a Russia pullback from Ukraine border. We continue to see critical Russian units moving towards the Ukraine border and not away from it. It could be Ukraine. Could be Ukraine risk premium. Oh, I got my fills over here. That's good. That means if I get this, I'll take the 2. Okay. Maybe the market is now focusing. Well, but no, like that's the thing is if the market was focusing on inflation, you would expect the treasury yields to be rising, right? Have you heard about you're talking about Navinder? Uh, People ask about that all the time. I feel bad for the guy. I mean, obviously what he did was wrong, but the way that he just got so not only did he get railroaded, but apparently all of the money that he had made through trading got squandered by the hedge funds that he gave it to. Why last CPI was juicy but not this one? Are you talking about the PPI from yesterday? Today was retail sales. I'm frankly I'm quite shocked the way that the market has been behaving after retail sales. I think that saw some sort of Ukraine risk headline coming through is like the only explanation for what's going on here. Not last week's CPI. Well, last week's CPI did kind of create quite a bit of movement from the markets. Well, I guess it wasn't terrible. I think that last week, when was it? So it was the 10th? Yep, so it was the 10th. Yeah. You come over here. You see here where it has CPI listed. There's a pretty big increase in the yields here. Now, there was no CPI the week before. It's a once a month number. CPI, and then yesterday was PPI. The week before that, there was all sorts of news the week before that, wasn't there? There was non-farms, which was also a pretty big mover. I mean, look at this. There's big numbers all over here. Every week there's been one that has really moved the treasuries, at least. Yeah. So News Squawk pointing out blinking comments on MSNBC coinciding with the Haven bid. So that definitely kind of changes the trade, but um I don't necessarily want to go along with that. I don't think that that makes enough for me to be like something's going to happen in Ukraine and I really want to get long, you know? It was on the 10th. Oh yeah. Yep, that was the CPA. Okay, well one of you thinks that I'm being stupid. So let's ask a different question. All right. Tonight, what do I got to do here to make the pull end? Close pull. So the main DOM that we have right here is the 10-year. The one that's the largest is the 10-year. Will Russia... Oh gosh, what the heck is that? Tag was poking me in my back or something. Will Russia attack Ukraine this week? I paid 3 cents to grab a cup of coffee to get nothing out of this news. You talking about today? You talking about this news today? Well, it looks like from right now that what has happened is that a conflicting headline has come out that the retail sales were good, but the Ukraine news came out and was bad, or it wasn't bad, but they're reacting to it. They're reacting to it. Will Ukraine attack? Wow, already 6 votes on that. Some of that action. Where was it that we had seen? I think it was like around 27, half 28, where we were getting like really big absorption and stuff. And there was probably some puking through that. Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking through in my head about this Ukraine thing, like why would that in particular set them off? What are you talking about, NASDAQ killer? I'm so so first of all, you gotta be a little bit more specific about which particular your event you're talking about when, because I'm having a hard time understanding you. But second of all, um, you find value in watching grain markets? Yes, but not like closely. But I always have up in the upper left corner. This one right here is that's corn, and you can see I have corn and soybeans on my watch list here. So I do keep an eye on it because I want to see, like, is like the whole commodities complex moving? Okay, so that did not happen 25 minutes after the news, NASDAQ killer. We had the initial move, and the initial move was higher rates, and it immediately moved down quite a bit, actually. It was like, what, eight ticks or so, moved down. And then immediately after that, they started drifting back the other way. Now it took, it happened over time, but that was probably because of uh, the conflicting Ukraine headline, which the market seems to care about more than the retail sales at the moment. And but you know what? If a piece of news comes out and you get a slow move in a certain, that's actually kind of better for you because that means that you have time to get into it, right? 30 minutes before retail sales leg was down after it shot up. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure that I'm sure some of it was short covering. So something I hate is that here in OBS, the little pole like covers up it covers up my screen. Oh, maybe I don't need to do that though. There we go. Okay, cool. And we'll keep it up. See, 9 out of 10 of you think that Russia is not going to attack Ukraine this week. I need a set, fixed, specified time to trade it. I don't want to keep sitting the whole waiting for these holders to react. Well, what? You want to just get in, see the pop, and then if it goes your way, get out? Because if that's what you want to do, that's not necessarily the way to play it, right? What you would prefer is a move where like the best kind of move is going to be like non-farms. You come in, non-farms, there's a little bit of a spike, you get into it, and then you hold it all day, and it just ends up being a trend day. That's like the perfect kind of news trade. The like the pop that happens like right when the news happens, I don't necessarily want to play that. that usually it's really hard to predict what the number is going to be, right? So that was industrial utilization. Number just coming through here was also better than expected. Specifically, month over month, 1.4% versus an expected 0.5%. So it was a whole percentage higher than anticipated. S&P 500 seems to be catching a bid. I'll add one more here. Actually, I'll add 2 more here. Now, here at 30.5, 31, there was some small icebergs. French minister saying that Iran nuclear deal could be reached within a few days. That's probably not good for oil. Well, so we're still stuck. We did have a little bit of a pullback. We're still stuck at. It appears that geopolitical tensions still dominating economic data. Big moves has to happen when I'm asleep or not watching. Well, yes and no. I've often found that like I'll be in a trade, and then when I get out, the move that I was really expecting to happen finally happens. Like they wait for me to leave. I've found that I tend to do a little bit better when I'm not on stream. But when I have losers that aren't on stream, they're like really bad losers. So like the really embarrassing ones. But some of that is probably more selection bias. Like you're more likely to remember the things that were unfavorable and didn't work out. Blinken just made back my oil money I lost last night. So here's the thing that I find really, really bizarre here. Okay, the Treasuries bid up really strongly. The S&P 500 eventually sold off, and I would say pretty hard as well. And we saw a really big spike in the 6J, a big spike in gold. Okay, so all of this is in line with some sort of geopolitical tension from Russia, most likely being Blinken talking about that, well, we don't see them backing off at all. And yet, oil has not really moved. What's with that? That's incredibly bizarre. Cannot something still just doesn't quite sit right slash make sense with this action, does it? Okay, well, the ES was catching a little bit there, but it's already kind of trailed off. So we'll see what happens. We may have to wait for the S&P 500 open to see what happens. They don't care about us. We're just a distraction. I'm just saying it's a selection bias, right? Russia releases videos of tanks returning, says Bloomberg. It it really, I am starting to wonder. So again, if we come back, Russia doesn't attack today. You guys, let's see here. What is the 12 of you voted? That's about half of our current viewers. I'll give you another like minute or two if you want to voice your opinion here. 92% of you say Russia will not attack Ukraine this week. Okay. It seems to me like every time that things are kind of calming down and everybody's starting to believe that like nothing is going to happen, that the Biden administration comes out and does something to make things flare back up again, doesn't it? And so we come back to this whole thing, which is like, so if Russia doesn't attack, then what is the reality? Was the Biden administration making it up or exaggerating intelligence that they had to make the threat of an invasion seem more imminent than it really was? And the presumed motivation for doing that would be that Joe Biden could then, when Russia doesn't attack, Joe Biden could then claim that they deterred them. And that would be some sort of foreign policy win that would be in his feather in his cap that he could tout for the election because his poll numbers aren't doing very well. And again, the pushback that I have against that theory is that I don't see how that would help Biden, and it doesn't seem to be helping him now. But that's the theory. That's what Russia says. That's basically what Russia and Zero Hedge are saying, right? And by the way, there was this whole thing about is Zero Hedge parroting Russian propaganda, and they say no, we haven't worked with Russian propagandists. I don't think it's the case that they've worked with Russian propagandists, but they 100% post like straight up Russian propaganda and misinformation. And I think that they do that to try and give people like the alternative viewpoint, but it is Russian propaganda as claimed. But I digress. That's what they're pushing. Okay. And then the other side is Russia really was going to attack and maybe they backed off, or they were making it seem like they were being more aggressive to get the US administration to overreact so that they could then turn around and see like, look at these warmongering Americans, yada yada, right? Those are like the two theories about what's going on. And I ask, how do you know what's the truth? There's no way for us to know, is there? Unless there's some sort of leak from the Biden administration that, well, we had an actual strategy to try and get people to focus on the Ukraine thing. What do you think? Okay, so let's ask that question. What do you guys think about that? How can we ask this question? Um, what is which which what is more likely the truth? Biden admin is exaggerating Ukraine threat, or Russia is what would the word be? Russia is goading the U.S. administration. What would we say? Russia is feeding U.S. false info. Which of those two scenarios do you think is more likely the case? I can't. I'm not sure anymore. I'm just not sure. Well, we've now come back to roughly the breakout zone. Find out next time on capitalism. Yeah. I've been having a hard time coming up with really funny jokes for that as of late. Like on Monday, I didn't do it because I was like, this is just all seems so silly. Like the thing was with the whole thing with the Ukrainian president saying that ironic thing and the market freaking out about that. That was hilarious, but I couldn't figure out how to make a joke about it. I tried doing like a Ukrainian accent. Like I can just picture the Ukrainian president being like, "Oh, you guys really thought that I was about to be invaded, didn't you? Oh man, you should have seen the look on your faces. That was so hilarious, you know." But I couldn't do a good enough Ukrainian accent. I sat there, brought up the text to speech to have it say that in a Ukrainian accent, and I just couldn't do it in that short of a time. You have no opinion on that? Come on, the world needs to know, folks. The world, you think that it's more like so far, oh, it's 50-50. 4 votes, 50-50. Biden administration is exaggerating threat or Russia is feeding US false info. And by the way, coming to the scene of the breakout, there is maybe a little bit of support. They have yet to have ticked into 28.5, which would be kind of the spot where all of the chartists would say lower low and yada, yada, yada. And why am I playing with a pen? That's got to be annoying. I must be a little ADHD. I'm going to use my fidget cube here and I'm going to fidget because I'm feeling a little fidgety now. Well, the ES, another slight move up. The average true range stop is somewhere there just above 4446.5. We shall see. There's just in that area, there is just a ton of pivots and stuff. So that's maybe like the key point where like a lot of people have stops and so forth, right? So we'll see if the S&P 500, when they open up, go for them. Now, on the split side, we can also see if the treasuries move back the other way, because if the treasuries move back the other way, it could be pretty aggressive, right? So far, though, they don't seem to be in too big of a rush to push below 29 in the 10-year treasury. So Well, Korean says they are suffering from the largest cyber attack they've ever seen. Viktor Zorha, the head of the state special communications service, said that they cannot confirm that Russia hackers stand behind the attack on Ukraine's critical infrastructure networks. And here in the Treasury, not too much activity yet, but of course we're like just before the S&P 500 opens, so. That's interesting. CME Group tweets minor revenue per transaction rose during the last three major slumps in Bitcoin since 2011, despite prices falling over 80%. Senior economist Eric Norland examines. SOH, what does that mean? I don't know what SOH means. Another little spurt there. Higher in the Treasury. The initial move so far from the S&P 500 off of the open is long. Does look like they're going to pressure all of those pivots here. So see, there's one more left. There you go. They beat that out. Yeah, that's pretty good. So that's that could be a bunch of stops from the pre-market. You've been sitting on your hands. Well, okay, so that was a pretty good up move to start with. Let's see if they can take that and move. Yeah, his alligator is still there in Discord. We've been chatting quite a bit. It's just me and him in the interest rates channel. It's been so funny. Like, we used to have a couple of people right, and then 2020 hit, and 2020 really killed treasury trading, didn't it? Oh man, it really killed treasury trading. But like we haven't built back up, so it's just me and alligator. There was another guy, but he was annoying and we banned him. There was this other guy that was kept trying to convince everybody to go long treasuries and everything, and I'm like, no, the interest rates are going to go higher. Like, watch, they're going to taper, and then they're going to raise interest rates next March. And I was saying this like back around August, and he was like, no, it's never going to happen. And then when he started losing, he started getting a little angsty, so we banned him. You can't get that person. This is the person where their ego is very heavily involved in whether or not they end up being right on the thing, right? That can be really toxic to your trading. Okay, so the ES has made a couple of attempts there. It hasn't broken out to another new high there quite yet, but it still looks favorable. Yeah, there you go. There we go. Okay. Well, a little bit of progress, but I don't know, man. it looks bullish, but it's just kind of little bit by little bit here. It's not like the kind of recovery I would expect where it's just like they blow them out and all of a sudden they're at 44.70 and you're like, wow, we sure got there quick. You say the Nasdaq looks a little weak. I'd say that this uptrend it's not as aggressive as I'd thought. I wonder about that bid that we had just had in the treasury that is now pushed back a little bit. If that was another news-based volatility or some sort of correlation. I mean, the 6J is moving along in tandem with the treasuries very strongly right now. But they did come back to it, except for that they still have not touched 28.5. Okay, there's the move I was looking for in the ES. So that helps reduce my risk and makes me a lot more comfortable. We'd still like to see up to here where my position started from. And then I probably should be able to just let them ride. I'll probably though let's not take both of them off. Let's just take one of them off. And we can take one off at like 70 or something. Okay. Well, I might also try and add contracts and trade the range here again as well, but I think that I would want it to be lower than 44 or 45 to be safe doing that. Okay, see okay, so now they traded 28.5. One lot. One lot went into 28.5. Thank you, sir. Whoever that was, if you were somebody stopping out or whatever it was, you hit into 28.5. We appreciate your sacrifice. We appreciate your sacrifice. Making the chart show it a lower low. Not that it's predictive at all, but it sure makes me feel better when there's a lower low. Okay, so yeah, that initial move, I have to say, it was good. I mean, they hit all of the benchmarks that I would want to see. The amount of volume behind it was not super encouraging though. The uptrend in the ES. Now, maybe this is just a pullback, and if they push to another new high, and it does look like they're getting back up there to 44, 49 or so fairly easily. So if they did bust a high, that might be a little bit more encouraging, and maybe we could get stronger volume then. For now, though, there's a few conflicting, kind of getting a few conflicting signs over in the S&P 500. It still seems a little bit split, let's say. And in the treasury, even though they did trade 28.5, the bids, there's still some strong bids in that area. So it kind of seems like there are some people trying to trade like the return back to the scene of the crime bounce sort of trade. I'm going to guess that treasuries aren't going to be the ones to take the lead if this ends up washing it back out. That's interesting. FBI data shows that Utah's property crime rate is higher than the national average, but experts don't know why, and these crimes, which still have an impact on people, still often go unsolved. That is not what most Utahns would think. Still boggled by economists not just asserting that cutting gas taxes is bad policy, but that it wouldn't cut retail prices. Many people seem to be confusing gasoline with crude oil, for which there is indeed basically a world price the US can't have much affect. Well, you can affect it by putting out supply, and having that increased supply actually has a much larger impact on the price than one might think, but they have a limited impact on it. And as of late, the problem has been that not only has the US not invested much in, more oil production, but the rest of the world has made the same mistake. What were you referring to? What you're saying it's probably not a naked trade, Lucas? I'm still kind of and another thing. If this is Ukraine headline flight to safety risk that is going on here since the CPI, or sorry, since the retail sales news, why did oil not move? Maybe the better trade here is to go short oil. Because it sounds like an Iran nuclear deal is getting close. So you have the combination of an Iran nuclear deal and the Ukrainian situation blows over. I think that oil should maybe come back to like 85. Okay, so I'm just noticing here in ES, this isn't something that I notice very often, but we are getting some more buy volume in here, but there's a little bit of iceberging holding it back. And you're kind of seeing a similar picture there in the church. In fact, wow, they just ticked up 2 ticks there. Jeez. Well, well, you see my sim orders in there, the market reacting to my sim orders. Oh no, we can't fill Seth, and they run away from it. Hmm. Oh, the guy you said before that. Thank you for. Oh, it was probably somebody stopping out. Most likely, there was only I think there was only one contract there too, right? I didn't watch it closely enough. There was not a whole lot traded at 28.5. They certainly didn't clear it. It was just enough to mark a lower low. Now, if they touch it again, then all of the price action indicators, which again aren't very reliable, but those would all be in line with the trend reversing. But we'll see. Roblox shares tumbled the most ever on Wednesday morning after the video game platform reported bookings that missed analysts' estimates in the fourth quarter. Good, because I think that platform is doing some pretty shady stuff that basically amounts to child slavery, and I don't support that platform. Marketeer asks, is this peak hawkishness or question mark? One does have to wonder. So there they come back to 29 once again. And once again, some leaners. Some fills, thank you very much. Yeah, there's definitely a lean. If we tick down again and somebody decides to sweep 28.5, I think you're gonna see some stops into 28 and 27.5. I can only hope. Please, 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 please. Maybe I should have gone for 40. I don't know. S&P, I'm wondering if the S&P 500 is turning into this. Oh, we're just going to chop all day again. You know? What Bloomberg says the source of the funds for Melania Trump's winning bid in the source of funds for the winning bid in Melania Trump's first NFT auction appears to be from the creators of the projects themselves. Oh, why am I not surprised? Jeez. Have you noticed all of these guys? Listen, when Donald Trump was in office, I supported him. I think he did a couple of good things. As things went along, and especially after the election, things kind of fell apart. And now what I'm seeing is that all of the people that kind of left from Trump world are all greedy, money grabbing shitbags, right? like they might have been good at their job in the White House, or they were right for this situation. Whatever, that doesn't matter. They're pushing NFT scams. This is a fucking scam. Just you buy your own, the winning bid for the thing, you buy your own thing to push the price up in hopes that some other stupid rich person comes and buys it from you. What a load of crap. That stuff just makes me so mad. Like the thing that irks me the most, there you go. There's those stops. Did you see that? 90 lots at 27.5. Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, I'm still losing money right now, but oh, anyways, the thing that drives me crazy the most right now is like cryptocurrency frauds and scams. Oh my gosh, yesterday on TikTok. So I keep getting like these scammers will create like alt accounts. They'll try and make it look like it's me, but it's clearly not me. And pushing like WhatsApp and stuff. I'm never going to use freaking WhatsApp, okay? And they came along and they made like 200 comments or something. And the tools for TikTok are not very good. I would have to go through and like delete every single one of them. Ugh. We live, my friends, we live in the golden age of fraud. The golden age of fraud, and I can only hope that U.S. regulators and law enforcement wake up and do better. So right now, I feel like that they just kind of they've kind of given up. They're like, well, there's just more of this than we can deal with. Price hikes helped offset rising input costs for Kraft Heinz as it delivered stronger than expected Q4 earnings. Okay. So on this trade in the S&P 500, obviously I'm using multiple contracts and taking on a lot of risk. Um, I have not gotten my profitable position below. I would prefer that losing where I start losing money to be below like 40, right? 44.40. So meh. Oh, right. Investor Charts points out that Roblox is down 22%, and that was another name that Kramer was in on. Oh man, has been taking it. Has been getting hammered lately, hasn't he? Um, something. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so something that was yesterday was on CNBC. Kramer was saying that we might have just seen peak inflation, which is something that I've been saying, and that a lot of analysts have been saying, is that there's reasons to think that the inflation that we've been getting is like that's as bad as it gets, right? But now that Kramer has said it, did he just like jinx us all? You jinxed us all, Kramer. You couldn't keep your mouth shut. You had to say something. Okay. Well, the S&P 500 is definitely in slice and dice mode. In a phone discussion, the Turkish and Russian foreign ministries discussed Ukraine, says says AA. I don't remember what that stands for. Okay, there's a big extension on the downside there. Um, hmm. Is that just a stop run, or was that a reaction to a headline? Hmm. Well, I'm already 5 contracts here. I should have waited. It's okay. Which I wasn't looking exactly at it when it breached, so I didn't really get to see what happened, but that was quite the downside move there. Well, the treasuries are still kind of pushing lower. I don't know, folks. This is curious. Carl Quintilla says the retail sales blowout adds credence to the idea that December sales were weak largely because people pulled purchases forward, fearing shortages of popular items. Quarter one GDP forecasts will be revised up meaningfully. Cool. I'm still not seeing a headline come out here. S&P 500 trying to recover that dip that we had. 30-year moving back down a little bit more meaningfully. when apparently 28.5 is the new 29. The news will probably come afterwards. Yeah, well, I mean, the way that they reacted to it, it kind of made me think that like I should be seeing it on Twitter by now. Okay. So I just heard a news story from Russia that was Russia saying, "Oh, the U.S. is just trying to whip up stuff to delay the pipeline, to delay Nord Stream 2." So that's not in line with the risk off move. So that couldn't have been the headline that we had. Well, and you see some continued stop runs. Somebody's stepping in here. I want that. I really want that. Give it to me. Give it to me. Come on. Okay. I didn't get it at 30 like I would have liked, but there was a 3,000 lot iceberg buy at 44.30. They're accusing the Americans of trying to pull European gas market share. This is what they're doing. China buying 132k metric tons, maybe driving beans higher here. Where do you get that? Where do you get that piece of news from? You have a story on that one? Do you have a link for that one? You can post links. Hmm. So you can see here with the treasuries, even though the S&P 500 like really puked out there, the treasuries have just kind of been chilling here around rotating around 28 the whole time. And you might even be seeing well, I don't know. It looks like a little bit of steepening in the yield curve, but that is not to say that the 30-year lagged. The 30-year moved down pretty good as well. Back to 151. 151 was where the news started for them. It's called juice, Seth? What do you mean? The open feeds me. The open is a good time to take a trade. If you have something, listen, if you have something that really effectively predicts which way they're going to go off of the open, you should go for it because there's money to be. That's when the most activity is there. That's when there's going to be the most opportunity. But there's also going to be a lot of noise there. So I think it would require pretty complicated system to really be super consistent on the open, Unless you're just pulling a teeny tiny little profit or something. Pomegranate juice. No thanks. I'm like, I'll do apple juice and maybe orange juice, and that's about it. When you sell VIAC at the top, but your fund explodes. Oh yeah, it's just that guy that lost all the money. Oh my gosh, did you guys see this story? Oh, I have to go and find it. So all of the 13F filings came out, right? And there was this guy that, I mean, he's a hedge fund manager. He's managing millions of dollars and everything, but he wasn't really very widely known. And today he beat everybody except for, I think, the two largest firms, like Citadel and somebody else were the only ones that beat him. And he made $2 billion off of a bet that he had made at a company that he had held for essentially 11 years. Like, they had this huge position in this stock for 11 years. And then in 2021, it increased like 550%. And they made $2 billion. Can you believe that? And this guy, he's managing this hedge fund from a small suburb in New Jersey. Like, he's not in an expensive house or anything. He lives with his sister. It was a great story. I really liked it. Yeah, it was Avis. That's yes, it was at Avis. It was the stock that he was invested in. Well, so another little probe there, a lower, but I'm gonna go to the max. I can't add anymore. Okay. I mean, I can. It's sim, but we're gonna tell ourselves 15 is the max. Okay. Well, I really like that 44.30. It really looks like that's, and the treasuries are kind of starting to puke here a little bit, aren't they? Oh, that was the business inventories that came out. 2.1% versus 2.1% estimate. And the housing market's 82 versus an estimate. So those numbers were all in line. Okay, we're coming back to the opening price in the 10-year. The more I read about that sort of stuff, the more I'm like, I should have been a hedge fund manager, guys. Why didn't I don't think that you can go and be a retail trader with a YouTube channel and, retail day trading is super, super hard. And then just all of the sudden people will start giving you their money for you to manage in a hedge fund, I don't think that would work. So is it possible for me to transition into becoming a hedge? Because I think that's the way that it should go. I don't necessarily want to be the one making all the calls about like every stock that we own and everything. Whereas I would rather be like a general strategic guidance, like these are the kind of edges that we're looking for, and here's kind of the founding principles that we're going to use to try and find our edge. I think that a hedge fund would be kind of cool. And I think that I would be better at it than some of the hedge funds out there, because some of the hedge funds out there are just absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. So I went and I made a channel in the Discord about CTAs to try and gather information about CTAs. Alligator says, don't know if you got interested in CFM following Bouchard's tracks, but he was one of the first employees of Science and Finance, also founded by Aguilar and later merged with CFM. Yes, that's right. So they were talking with this story that I posted in the CTA strategy channel. They discuss CFM's Discus Fund, which received the Hedge Fund Journal CTA Performance Award for Best Risk-Adjusted Returns over 5 years, ending in December 2020 in the Systematic Short-Term Trader, which means AUM about amount under management greater than 500 million category. So these guys are like the best. Like this Bouchard. Yeah, I don't know how to say it. Bouchard, the guy from France that wrote the Markets Under the Microscope book. He runs a fund. Like, he is like the best at this stuff. He is like the best at this stuff. Their systematic fund that is a CTA, and they're trading treasuries and currencies and things like that, right? But commodities trading advisor strategy, and they have the best 5-year risk-adjusted returns, which is like, it ticks all of the boxes off. So it's not just like, oh, we found some good information. Like, we're getting the best information from the best people out there, and for some reason, I'm the only person talking about it. Like, I'm the only person outside of the hedge fund industry that is noticed this guy and talks about it. What is with that? Isn't that so weird? I'm just that good, guys. That's what it is. I'm just that good. I shouldn't be bragging. I've had a pretty terrible trade today, haven't I? Uh-oh, what's Bitfinex saying here? Federal prosecutors are investigating whether short sellers conspired to drive down stock prices by sharing damaging research reports ahead of time and engaging in illegal trading tactics, people familiar with the matter said. The U.S. Justice Department has seized hardware, trading records, and private communications in an effort to provide wide-ranging conspiracy among investors who bet against corporate shares, the people said. One tactic under investigation is spoofing, an illegal ploy that involves flooding the market with fake orders in an attempt to push a stock price up or down, they said. Another is scalping, where activist short sellers cash out their positions without disclosing it. But where are they talking about? Well, it must be in traditional markets, even though Bitfinex is talking about it. But Trump says the Department of Justice should declassify all remaining Russia probe records. I agree. I thought that maybe they were going to pressure 26 there. They're kind of being a little bit hesitant about the open, but I've seen some encouraging signs in the ES. Like, they're going to recover this, but not quite there yet. On HBO tonight, Icon, the Restless Billionaire. Oh, yeah. I'm really starting to get, I don't know if it's just, okay, like, I need things to, like, get into. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be, like, some variety. You'd think, like, you get into this one thing, and then you only ever do that one thing forever. But, like, for me, that doesn't really work. Like, I've got to find something to, like, be into, just to, like, find everything else you can about it. And since I've become so cognizantly aware of this tendency that I have, I like actively seek it out. So what I will do is I will try and find a hobby that is really deep, but then not actually do the hobby. So, like, one of them, I want to do this eventually at one point, but I mostly just got into it to read everything there was to know about it, about quadricopters. That's super cool, right? Well, and every once in a while we'll go back into Minecraft. There's so much to freaking know about Minecraft. I don't know how the kids know all this stuff. So I was playing it the other day with my stepdaughter, and she was like, "No, you need to use this because you should just mine with a block, because the block mines dirt as fast as the pick does, and you're just wasting your pick." And they know every teeny tiny little detail about that game. And there's just too much to know. I don't care to know or even remember it. Okay, that was maybe, they haven't touched 28 there, but that might be a little bit of a, we're seeing a little bit of a bid coming in here in the treasuries for some reason. Where's the both option in the poll? I suppose it's possible. But the question is, what is more likely? So if you think that the answer is both, then really you should be answering that Russia is feeding the Biden administration false information, because you can't have neither. So like, if how do I put this? I mean, the question really comes down to, do you trust the U.S. administration, right? Oh, so sorry. So I have it backwards. So I think what this really comes down to is, do we trust what the U.S. administration is telling us, and that's how you should answer the poll, right? So if it's both, then that means that you don't trust the U.S. administration, and you should say that Biden is exaggerating. Biden is buying it and reselling higher. Yeah, then I would say that the Biden administration is exaggerating, is which option I would check for that. I haven't looked at the poll. It looks like you guys are a little bit on the Biden administration is exaggerating the threat. You should trust neither. Well, but listen, I expect Russia to feed us bullshit. But if the U.S. administration is intentionally causing market volatility over something that they know is not really a very big deal, that's quite a scandal, really. I don't know how they would ever get called out on it, but that's quite a scandal in my book. So but it's kind of interesting to me, is like, we all seem to think that there's not going to be an attack. Like, we did that poll and it was 90% of you guys said there's not going to be an attack. So then we kind of come in, okay, so what are the two options for why we don't think that there's going to be an attack? It seems like my audience is kind of leaning towards the zero hedge explanation of things. So should we call that the right-wing explanation? That the Biden administration is exaggerating the threat? I don't necessarily fall in line with that, but I think that there's some, we are getting some information to kind of suggest that Biden, I mean, not some information, but what I'm seeing is, like, every time that it starts to cool off, the Biden administration comes in and says something else. It's like Russia says, we're pulling out, we're backing off, yada, yada, yada. And then the US is like, no, they're not. No, they're not. It's just like, why are you so adamant about saying that? Like, you're on alert. You're on alert. So why would you care if the public thinks that they're not backing off? Because if they backed off, and if Russia says we backed off and then they don't back off and they attack, then it wouldn't matter what they said. It didn't matter that you said that they weren't backing off or whatever the deal is. The world would still punish them if they moved in, right? So why does the Biden administration see such a need to point out that they're not backing off? It seems to me like the Biden administration wants to keep it in the spotlight. And why is that? Is it because they're exaggerating it? That's kind of the logic that I think is kind of in favor of the Biden administration, is exaggerating the threat. Put the war industry in the analyses, please. Well, you want to buy Northrop gunman, right? If that's what the play that you're trying to make. By the way, because we're continuing to see some degree of steepening, that move back up in the 5 and the 10-year that we saw, it didn't really move very much in the 30-year, and that's why the 10-year yield in the micros is still right there at 0.4. The US is like, don't back off just yet. We need to raise rates and has to justify them in that way. It's not COVID, it's war. Trust me, guys. That wouldn't make sense. We just don't like it when we're threatened. I I don't think that that's the reality. So like the idea that the United States or NATO would just all of the sudden decide to go into Russia, you know, and of course, let's say that they try and do it with some false flag attack or something to try and convince the American public to go along with it and everything. They're just not going to do it. I'm sorry, but they're just not going to do it. Okay, but what this is really about is that neither the United States nor Russia wants to go to war, nor do they think that we are going to go to war. But the way that their policy apparatus works is that they prepare themselves for the worst case scenario to deter their enemy from ever even thinking about attacking, right? And the reason that you're seeing what is happening in Ukraine right now is because Ukraine is an area of extremely extreme strategic significance. I say that again. Ukraine is an area of extreme. I can't speak. Extreme, supreme. Ukraine is supremely strategically important to any kind of conflict between the US and Russia. And Russia does not want to give up that strategic buffer zone, essentially. That's what this is really all about, right? But here's the problem, is that it wasn't necessarily the US that did this, right? I think that Russia only has themselves to blame in this situation. The Russian government has really been clamping down on people and been making all of these aggressive moves everywhere and stuff. And a lot of Ukrainians, especially the Western Ukrainians, are like, fuck this. The West is way better. Right? So the Russians only have themselves to blame as to why all of these Eastern European countries are moving more towards NATO. Right? If Russia just like chilled out, you know, and had never been doing this sort of stuff, maybe this never would have happened, you know? But on the other hand, there is the pipeline. The pipeline is probably another thing. The pipeline kind of created that situation and caused Russia to act in that manner in the first place. But I don't know. Do you think that if this all blows over, let's just say that this all blows over and there's no invasion, because I really think that that's the more likely scenario at this point. Does Ukraine become more Russian or less Russian? Because they were trending away from Russia. Does this bring them closer to Russia? I'm not sure. Interesting question to try and game out in your mind, isn't it? If we chill out, the US will put everything you can. Yeah, sure they will. So what? I mean, not if they. Sorry, if they chill out. I mean, it's probably, maybe it's too late. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's too late. If they chill out, Ukraine will probably. Well, even if they don't chill out, frankly, then we'll have to take USA as well. No, okay. I think that if Russia backed off, the trend towards the West would be slower. I think that part of what's driving this trend towards becoming more West is because of Russian aggression. Okay. But probably either way, they become more West. And if Ukraine became a member of NATO, then yes, they would put every kind of weapon imaginable in Ukraine. I don't think that they have any intention of ever using it except for defensively against Russia. But it would be there, yes, because they are still extremely concerned about Russia trying to take over Eastern Soviet bloc countries in Europe. So, again, of course, Russia has nothing to worry about from that, but like, the Russian government can't do that, right? The Russian government can't come in and say, well, the US told us that those weapons are only defensive, so we're not going to worry. Can you imagine if you told the public, if the United States told the public that, they're like, well, Russia says that they have no intention of invading Eastern Soviet bloc countries or nuking the United States. So we're just going to give up all of our nuclear weapons and any kind of defensive capabilities. Like the American public would be totally pissed, right? It's a pretty funny situation how like they both have an obligation to, you know, put up the best defense for their country possible, but not actually attack, right? And that has kind of led to this situation. But it's the pipeline and the other interests in there kind of turned into it, making it what it is now. And now that it's there, I don't know if the problem ever goes away or not. I don't know. Isn't it weird that Russia has us on the radar ever since you put out them polls? What do you mean by that? Are you saying that the Russians? No, Kat Huda, I'm pretty sure he has been on the stream before, right? I think that he's just been lurking. Live Action says they saw a report that hypersonics went to Syria. Oh, yeah, okay. The hypersonic, the U.S. is the hypersonic missile thing is a big concern, right? Again, I don't think that any of these countries really have a desire to do this stuff. Like here's the thing. Soviet Russia wanted to take over the world. Okay. Soviet Russia was all about every country that we can spread revolution to, we're going to. Okay. I don't think that Putin is a communist. I think that he's kind of split a little bit, but it seems to me like what he thinks is that it was the strong leadership and the really kind of almost dictatorial way in which Russia was run is what he's trying to bring back. That's what I see in Putin. He doesn't seem to be ideologically driven. Some people think that maybe he's just like a secret communist or something. I don't see that, right? So he would absolutely go in and attack Eastern Soviet bloc countries if he knew that the US would do nothing. If he knew that the world would do nothing, then he would move in and all of those countries would just surrender and then that would be the end of it. And then it would be all one big Soviet bloc again. And they think that having that big Soviet bloc as a big economic bloc would be beneficial to them. Doesn't necessarily mean that they'd be bringing back communism, but this is a let me change gears for a little bit. Where this is going at is, again, one of the most useful constructs that you can use to try and figure out what is going on in the world is the mercantilism construct, which is that there are core areas and there are periphery areas. And the core areas are where the manufacturing is, and the periphery is where the farming and materials come from. And there is always a conflict between the core and the periphery. Okay. So in the case with Russia, all of the manufacturing is there in the heart in Russia, and all of these outlying countries are the farming and materials areas. And the more that Russia has those farming and material areas under their thumb, the better it is for Russia. See, there's always this kind of conflict because they're going to want to keep that whole together, right? So think about in the US Civil War, right? Core is what? The north, where all the manufacturing was, and the periphery is what? The south, where all the farming is, right? If the south breaks away and is their own country, that presents a problem because then they're going to ask more for their materials and you know, they can do all these sorts of things that messes up the core. So the core always wants the periphery to be part of them, and the periphery always wants to be on its own, right? And so you'll see this, and especially a country that is going to take a more of a dictator type of a role. Their whole thinking is going to be, I need to get my periphery areas under complete control, and that will have economic benefits to our country. That's what they're going to be thinking. So Putin would take those countries if he could. But because the NATO and everything, they're not going to do anything. Like Russia's not going to attack. I don't think the US is going to attack. They might do like little things like take over a section of Ukraine, right? Like the Donbass region, they might move into that. We'll see. But I don't think that Russia wants an all-out war with NATO, you know? US and Russia will talk it out without any war, probably. Yep. You'll see this also in China, right? So the thing in China is that China thinks that the thing that you'll hear Chinese people say is China needs to say one China, because when China was split up, they were weaker, right? But the reality is that even over there, you've got a core and a periphery area. So make of that what you will. Ukraine is the periphery. They would take it if they could, but they can't. But should this is kind of an odd situation where like Ukraine probably you would think that Ukraine would stay part of Russia, be their periphery, even if they're a separate country. Cool. Everything's fine, right? But then Ukraine started getting scared of Russia and started moving towards the United States. Global firepower? War does not determine who is right, only who is left. Yeah. It's something that people on the left has always pointed out, and anti-war activists, and they're not wrong. The buildup of arms kind of creates a situation that can lead to war on its own, even though nobody really wants it. And to some extent, that is how like World War I started, right? But I think that the other thing to realize here is that some of this stuff is just humans. Some of this stuff is just humans. Like when you really start to think about how society progressed and everything, you know, like game it out, the evolution of it, you get tribes of people living together in little towns, and then there's a competing town, and you're competing over the same resources. And if there's a famine, not both tribes can have that resource. So the tribe that kills the other tribe is the one that ends up living, right? That's how this all starts. You'll come into a situation where neither side is necessarily wrong, but they have to pursue war for their own sake, the own interests of their people and their country, right? It is the nature of people. There will always be conflict. This kind of idea of this view of the future, like the Star Trek view of the future, where the whole world is united under one government and there's nothing but peace, because it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen, guys. What? How does the word make the same argument at gun rights? Sorry, when you guys are referring to something, it really helps if you try and reference what I was talking about that you're referring to, because I might not see your comment until I've already said like 5 or 6 other things, and I forget what it was I even said. So what moved the market in the previous hour? Well, so what I believe has happened. You don't have enough space in your comments. I get it. So what I believe happened, if we come over here and we look at the Treasury, oh, actually that wouldn't work. That one doesn't work. I'm going to make this one big. We had here retail sales at 6:30. Retail sales was very good, and so we saw interest rates rise, Treasuries fall quite significantly, and then we saw a really long 23-tick move the other way for no apparent reason. And later on, based on headlines and sleuthing and so forth, we believe that the most likely explanation for this move is risk off sentiment from Ukraine headlines. Okay. Right now, we all seem to believe that the Russian invasion is not going to happen, but the robots are still really triggered by any kind of headline. Blinken came out and said something, we moved up. Since that time, what I'm just seeing now is like post meta order impact. So you can see right here, like they're settling at 26.5. That says to me that it was like there was the big buy in there and then they stopped and now things are just settling back in. If these guys over here decide that they don't need that anymore, or somebody comes in and says that this price is too high and starts taking a short, I think it's quite likely that you could see new lows. But who knows when that happens? It could be a long time from now. I can only hope that somebody decides that these prices aren't correct and start selling the treasury. But we'll see. But there ain't no headline. Oh, the headline was Secretary of State Blinken saying that there is no evidence that Russians have backed off from the border. That was the headline that came through. I think that it hit the market before it hit Twitter and our news squawks. It might have been on Bloomberg, something like that. But that's the only reasonable explanation that I have. Because otherwise, we have to say that they just randomly decided to buy the treasuries up super strong for the hell of it. Jeez. Oh, what trade are you in now? I'm long interest rates. I do have a position in ES2 that's a sim position, but oh, by the way, we got to take off some there. Okay, so we are seeing the oil numbers come out and moving oil, pretty big bar there. I wonder if maybe the reason that oil didn't respond to the Ukraine headlines is because there's still quite a bit of risk premium built in there and they were going to wait for the EIA numbers. I'm seeing corn move up here as well. Maybe starting to see a hint of flattening because the 5-year is just one tick down more. I'm probably reading too much into that. The market is a casino. Well, it's not a casino, but there's a lot of randomness involved in it, isn't there? And is the game maybe skewed against us? Yes, but there's still skill involved. That's the big difference between this and gambling. Like in gambling, with the exception of my understanding is craps and blackjack, the rest of it is all just luck. And for the people that can make money in craps and blackjack, like you have to be like insanely good at it, and when they find out that you're insanely good at it, they just kick you out of the casino. But apparently there is possible if you're really good to have a slight edge in those. What do you think about a 3x ETF? Are you insane? There's not enough volatility in cryptocurrency market already. You have to leverage yourself 3x. What? No thanks. I'm actually coming around. I think there's still some really big headline risk in the cryptocurrency market, right? Especially, around regulation and rising interest rates are still going to be headwinds for cryptocurrency, but we are coming back to more reasonable valuation levels. So it's not where I would like it to be, but it does appear that we are coming back into more reasonable valuation levels. By the way, something that we've been seeing here in the treasuries, like almost all day, is that you'll get like a big bid. Like there's a big bid there, almost 5K at 2,600, and the market just shies away from it. Hmm. Trekistani Underground says that it's 6.5 hours until midnight in Kiev. So it's 6 o'clock p.m. in Kiev right now. Yes, it's now said that crypto is a threat to the global financial system. Oh, right. So it was, who was it? The IMF that was warning that cryptocurrency has become so entangled with the global financial system that it now presents a stability threat. The big problem with cryptocurrencies remains that Tether does not appear to be completely backed. And if everybody in the cryptocurrency market decided to sell, they wouldn't be able to, because the money is not actually there. The money that got us to these levels doesn't actually exist to some extent. How bad it actually is, it is hard to say, but we do know for a fact that if they tried to cash all of the tether that's currently issued, they wouldn't be able to do it. Okay, we are getting a push below that 26 area now. So that's like a huge risk, and the regulators are coming. The regulators are planning on regulating it this year, right? And again, interest rates are rising as well. And I anticipate that we will see a good number of interest rate raises here, 4 or 5, and then maybe they'll chill out because supposedly we're past peak inflation. So for Bitcoin, here's my strategy. I'm seeing them coming into a more reasonable kind of valuation range. I want to see Tether collapse. I want to see Tether collapse, and then I'll pick up the pieces. Either Tether collapse or some sort of large decline driven by regulation, right? And then once the decline from regulation comes through and like all of the hot air is deflated from the market, then I want to buy it. And even then, I wouldn't just be buying Bitcoin. I would probably be going into Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, whatever other kind of project you can find out there, because the Bitcoin it has some problems that without the aid of Tether, I think that it will be a more difficult trade. That makes sense. Well, that was a pretty good decline there. Yields didn't move quite as much as I would have liked. It was like, 5 ticks, but it's okay. I'm gonna sell my 200. Wow, you have that much USDT, then I would get, yeah. Well, like that's the thing, is if you came in and tried to redeem $200 million in Tether today, I don't know if they would let you. I'm not 100% sure. Or if they did let you, it would there might be like a larger decline in the crypto market, because like, dude, when Tether doesn't print, that's when all of the bear runs happen. Wow. In San Francisco, they vote in favor of ousting school board members. Landslide victory. 72 to 79% of San Francisco voters backed a recall of left-wing ideologues on the school board, shot across the bow. And this guy, the People's Pundit, who is kind of a right-wing data analytics guy, said, under the threat of defeat, our school board just reversed itself. I have been sending studies to one member I personally know for months, yet they still voted to reinstate it over Omicron. We only got their attention when I made the case that they would all be defeated. Wow. That's crazy. And Jim Dalton Trading saying price with context and price without context. Can I complain about this again? Because I know that you guys have heard this preach before, but I don't feel like I've come across like the correct language to really make my case here. Context is certainly important, and understanding what's going on to me, context is the news and things from outside of the price action that might tell us what future orders might be, right? But when you're trying to use context in the context of technical analysis, what context really ends up being is reduce my number of entries to be so low so that there's no way that you could get a statistically significant result out of it, is what it really ends up doing. So somebody will say when it's in this context, you see this signal within this context, then it's a good buy and everything else like that. And I say there's no way that you could possibly know that because there are not enough samples in all of stock history to be able to get a statistically significant result on this. That's what I think of. That's what I think when I hear context now. I say, your signal didn't work, so now you're saying I just need to put a filter on it. But the filter reduces the number of entries that you get so much that there's no way you can possibly know that it actually works. Good luck with your work. Hope to see you more streams. Hey, thank you very much for stopping by. I enjoyed our little chat, and I enjoyed seeing you again. What? Drunken naked brawl breaks out at Disney World in Wilds. Oh, I've got to see this. I got to see this. What? A Jerry Springer style brawl broke out at Disney World between a pair of drunken naked sisters. Whoa, 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 whoa. What? It was naked sisters. Let's see here. No, I didn't get a picture yet. Is there a picture or a video or something? Related video. Oh, come on. Come on. Nothing? Okay, well. Probably it would be something I don't want to see anyways, right? Certainly not something that I would risk looking at on stream, scream, and risk it showing up on. Buy. Okay, that was interesting. A 3K buy at 26. Somebody is really dedicated to this long trade, right? When the sisters the ill-fated evening started out with the sisters who were tourists from New Jersey. Oh, of course, they're from New Jersey, grabbing dinner at Disney Springs at a steakhouse and then hitting an Irish pub for drinks, according to details recently revealed in a Florida Circuit Court paper. When the sisters, aged 29 and 31, were ready to go back to their hotel off the resort property, their phone died and a Disney security guard helped them call an Uber. The Uber driver refused to take them, saying they were too drunk, so the security guard called a taxi. While they were waiting, the pair began arguing. The older sister called the younger sister a bad mom and slapped her, according to court papers. In return, the younger sister allegedly threatened to punch her. Police from Orlando County Sheriff's Office arrived around 12:40 a.m. to find the younger sister screaming and crying near Cirque du Soleil, steps from the Watermelon and Mango parking lots. She was stripped down to only her underwear and sandals. You said that it was a naked brawl. New York Post, you just straight up lied in your headline. My goodness, guys. After attempting to calm the situation, the security manager said one female slapped the other in the face. The sheriff's report said at that point, both females began punching, slapping, and pulling each other's hair. The security manager pulled the two drunk women apart, but in true rash reality show fashion, they rushed at each other. Oh, wait, it's not over? Maybe they do eventually get naked here. Okay. One separated, both sisters ran at each other, slipped in the other sister's vomit. That's the story. Once separated, both sisters ran at each other, slipped in the younger sister's vomit, then fell to the brushes while still fighting, the report said. According to the security guard, the younger sister ran a few feet away and took off her dress, exposing her breasts. Shortly after, they began to punch each other again. Eventually, the pair were separated and arrested. Disney didn't have a video of the brawl, the report said, adding that when police questioned the younger sister, all she wanted to talk about was how she didn't like her sister's boyfriend. What? Both women were arrested. This is like Florida level stuff. What the heck? Both women were arrested for misdemeanor domestic violence, battery, and disorderly intoxication. The state's attorney office declined to pursue criminal charges. Each of the sisters who didn't sustain any injuries also requested the other not be prosecuted. A representative for Disney World did not return requests for comment. Well, that was the most entertaining thing I've read all month. Man, my lips are super chapped today. Am I not drinking enough water? Maybe not. The That is so funny. Now I'm sitting here like, what should I do with this story? It's just too good. It's just too good. Here, I can put it in. Should I tweet it out? That was just hilarious. The most hilarious news story I've read all month. I'll tweet it for you guys. They could have well let Mickey Mouse stop the fight, or were they like just sisters, or was it intentionally made to sound like nuts? No, they were sisters. They were sisters from New Jersey. Apparently, it sounded like they were wearing sundresses. Just got a little too drunk, that's all. Oh, there you go. What is a Russian propagandist? Simply someone of below average intelligence, says Nassim Nicholas Taleb, who only criticizes the U.S., never Russia. They take advantage of the transparency in the U.S. to magnify mistakes. Anecdotes become salient, just as other statistical distortions. Yes, he's right, though. Like, listen, I don't know if Zero Hedge is like intentionally doing this, but they only share the Russian side of it. They don't. Like, I get trying to show the other side of it, but Zero Hedge clearly has a bias and only shows that bias, and that bias ends up in them parroting Russian propaganda. Which is unfortunate because the website has a lot of really good information otherwise. I wish that they would just stick to stealing and reporting on Wall Street analysis reports instead. Dollar slice pizza shops are a New York City staple in the latest fictions of inflation. Oh, that's sad. When I lived in New York, I ate pizza a lot because it was so dirt cheap. Like, they gave us this huge stipend to like spend $20 a meal or something, and I would just go buy pizza and saved it all. And invested it into my DJ equipment, which probably wasn't the best investment, but hey, you know what? I'm happy with it. I got my value out of that stuff. I still use it. And I still have it. Well, we had a really good washout below 28 and going as low as 25 at some point. Oh, it wasn't 28. It was like 28.5. Wait, where was the washout? Yeah, there was the washout, and then they moved down, they came back up, they washed down again. So this has just kind of been like a slow and steady step down, step down, step down. We'll see if they ever find a floor or not. The thing is that right here at 2.050 could be, they could just kind of split the difference and settle around the middle instead of trying to go for the lows. There might even be an attempt at a further move. So it'll push up again. Their house must be a hoot around the holidays. I want to, that's the whole story is just like, what? People do crazy things when they're drunk though, right? You think that FGBL wants to test the top again? Will FOMC save the day or just vomit and we slip down on it? That's a good question. I totally forgot about that. I think let's see here. Well, first of all, the FOMC ended up being hawkish, right? What was it that there was like something that he said. I remember it not really being such a big deal off of the release and then really moving during the press conference was the FOMC, right? I think that it will probably be a lot like last time in that we will learn a lot about what's going on internally at the Federal Reserve, but there's no way for me to really know with much accuracy whether it will be hawkish or dovish. But I think with the way that the trend is and everything else, I think that it favors the hawkish side. Like first of all, you've kind of got a situation where because of the big buy here, you could get some people to puke down on the downside, right? But the larger trend is still interest rates rising, and so it might be worth trying to hold a position through that. I don't know. But on the split side of that, it doesn't really make sense to want to be long treasuries here because of trying to follow the momentum from the Russia thing, right? Unless you really genuinely think that Russia is going to attack today. Unless you have a really strong reason to think that Russia is going to attack. I don't know it makes much sense to want to try and hold that through the FOMC meeting minutes, right? Although it's really hard for me to sort out how many positions could still be on right now. You definitely see the spread. They bought the 5-year and sold the 30. You think there will be a strong buy? So you think interest rates will decline after FOMC, huh? By the way, oil taking off here. What was the news there in oil, by the way? How much was it? Crude oil inventories would build 1.121 million versus an expected draw of negative 2.14. But gasoline inventories was a draw of 1.331 million versus a expected build of 0.5. So was the gasoline inventories just more significant, Or was it like they were just kind of holding off the whole time, waiting to see what it was, and now that they saw what it was, the Ukraine thing takes over? You think there won't be as many hikes? I don't know. I do think one of the things that I think we need to consider, and I don't know how I trade this in the 10-year, but one of the things that I think we need to consider is that they will probably be more aggressive at the beginning. Like they will probably be really aggressive here March. They may yet, I mean, it's starting to look like they could possibly do the 50 basis point hike, right? But then this whole thing about them doing like 5 to 7 rate hikes this year, I think that by the time we get to like the fifth hike, that it will start to turn into there's not really needed. It might not actually be needed unless the economy is like really hot in the third and fourth quarter. Well, we'll see. The economy looks really strong right now, doesn't it? All right. Well, I don't want to leave you guys hanging here about what I end up doing, but I probably will just take -5 on this trade. I don't know if it makes sense for me to try and hold it through the FOMC meeting minutes, but we'll see what happens. But for now, it's time for me to get going. We should put a title. Well, let's end the poll here. You guys think that Biden administration is exaggerating the threat? Okay. We're just gonna say markets ignore good retail sales. That's how I'm gonna remember it. I'm not Bear. Hey, thanks. You've been lurking the whole time. Thanks for saying bye. I appreciate it. I will see you guys tomorrow. Make sure make sure you're subscribed here. I have a TikTok, but also Twitter. So if you want to know what I think about the FOMC meeting minutes, if I find anything interesting in it, that's probably where you hear from me is on Twitter. So maybe you want to go follow me there. Stay profitable.